Welcome to the BrightInsight Digital Health C-Suite series. I'm Eisinger Burgess, Senior Vice President of Marketing at BrightInsight. Joining me today at the NASDAQ broadcast studio, live from the 42nd Annual JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, is Justin Butler, partner at Eclipse Ventures. Justin, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
So I'm obviously familiar with Eclipse. You led our Series A at BrightInsight, but for the viewers, can you share a little bit about who Eclipse is and what your investment strategy is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Eclipse is a venture capital firm, and we started the firm back in 2015, very specifically to invest at the intersection of the physical and digital economies. We see an opportunity to bring novel digital tools to old line physical industries like supply chain, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, healthcare, really the industries that make up the everyday part of our lives. We can invest in everything from the very beginnings of a company. We often start companies ourselves in combination with entrepreneurs, all the way through Series A, Series B, and Series C. What really sets us apart is that we're a team of operators. Our team comes from places like Tesla, Flextronics, Apple, Samsara, DuPont, GE. We have deep operational expertise in everything from engineering to finance to sales, and we stand by and partner with entrepreneurs to help them build these world-changing companies in the most important industries of our society.
That's great. So the topic du jour is generative AI. A lot of the interviews we're doing this week are focused on, okay, how can GenAI be applied in life sciences specifically?
Yeah.
From your vantage point, what are the most interesting use cases or examples you've seen of companies leveraging generative AI?
Yeah, absolutely. Generative AI is obviously an exciting topic, both I think broadly in Silicon Valley and very specifically at the JP Morgan conference. And I think there's a lot of folks that are trying to figure out exactly how it's going to work and impact physicians, patients, and economies broadly. We see some really interesting opportunities in generative AI, specifically to take a lot of the knowledge that folks have and distribute it more broadly. And so if you can understand, there's a couple of folks that may have very specific expertise that is kind of locked up in a silo, how can you more broadly distribute that across the world? This was actually part of our investment thesis in a company called Cerebras that has built the world's largest computer chip for AI training. And when we first made that investment back in 2016, we said, hey, what if you could take the world's knowledge of all pathologists and encode that into an actual kind of computer algorithm? You could then really bring that out to the world to help patients, not just at world-class institutions, but also at anywhere that patients may have a need for that. So those are some of the big opportunities we see is really this distribution of expertise. And we've been investing in this space actually for the past 6 or 7 years to enable these things to come to fruition.
So it's not new to you guys.
That's right.
And so how would you describe your investment thesis when it comes to GenAI?
Yeah, so our investment thesis when it comes to GenAI is that we see GenAI as a tool. And so we have to understand what is the actual product, what is the service, what are you delivering with that tool? And so as I mentioned in our investment with Cerebras, we've invested across the stack for GenAI. So everything from the core silicon chips that are used to do the computation to a company like Bright Machines that is building what we call the AI backbone, where they're actually assembling the servers that are used to do those things, all the way through to companies like BrightInsight and Rune Labs that are leveraging GenAI tools to help patients understand some of their symptoms better, to help clinicians and patients interact more efficiently and more clearly, and really allow them to focus on the differentiation of things that matter and the actual insights they can develop from data, as opposed to having to kind of go search through the data to understand what's happening there.
Yep, so you touched a little bit on this, but from the patient perspective and or clinician,
yeah.
How do you think they can really benefit, not just from generative AI technology, but just digital health in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the big topics that we've been talking about for a long time is the fact that most healthcare is delivered episodically. You might see your doctor for a day every month or every couple of months in some cases, and it's unlikely that your health does not change wildly in between those days. And so collecting all of this data is now doable. We can collect data between Apple Watches and phones and wearable glucose meters. There's a lot of data that's coming in, but actually searching through that data, understanding what it means, pulling out to the actual meaningful parts of it, can take a long time. And we don't have enough people to be able to stare at the data and understand what it means, so that when you do have an interaction with your clinician, or you do have a patient plus pharma kind of interaction, how do you make the most of that? And so that's where I think a lot of these opportunities can come, is that we now have all this data coming in, and these new kind of GenAI tools give us the means to really understand that data in a meaningful way, and transform healthcare from this episodic care to much more of a temporally continuous set of care, so that we can look at fluctuations in day-to-day life and really help patients improve their overall quality of life, deal with any disease or issue they may have in a much more meaningful way.
That's great. And yeah, to your point, clinicians don't have the time to analyze all that data, and they're also not incentivized to spend their time that way, right?
That's right.
So that's an interesting point to just bring up, okay, how could GenAI and these technologies synthesize all of that so it can be actionable and used?
That's exactly right. And writing notes and communicating these things to the patients takes a lot of time. And GenAI is obviously fantastic at creating a very digestible piece of prose that can be used to communicate between doctors and patients in meaningful ways. And that allows physicians to focus on the most important things, and it provides patients with really an understanding. You know, most patients don't speak doctor speak. Right. And so translating it from what the clinician or how clinicians interact between themselves, and then communicating that to the patient, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for streamlining and efficiency and better overall patient-provider interactions.
Yep. So, we talked a little bit about this at dinner last night. We had a lot of the top life sciences executives in the room talking about generative AI, talking about digital health technologies, and kind of wondering, okay, how do we get started? How important are platforms and partnerships for these large healthcare companies as they're, starting their foray into digital health?
They're absolutely crucial. One of the things that we do know about GenAI and this whole AI movement is that it requires a lot of data. And it requires a lot of data from a lot of different kinds of sources. And right now, there's a lot of silos between medical institutions, pharmaceutical companies, patient populations, payors, all of the above. And we need to figure out what kinds of platforms, what kind of tools and technologies are going to allow us to share that data while respecting patient privacy, while respecting very specific trade secrets, while protecting proprietary information to pharmaceutical companies. And that's why a company like BrightInsight, for example, that has full regulatory capabilities and full transparency to say, hey, this is where and how your data is being used, is of the utmost importance. Because without core fundamental guardrails and highways like that, I think it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these companies to be comfortable sharing their data and working together in these consortiums. But we know that they're absolutely necessary for all of these tools to really bring the promise that we all believe that they have.
Well, Justin, thank you for being here. It sounds like there's tremendous opportunity for generative AI and digital technologies to really revolutionize care. So appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, and I couldn't agree more.